Hi everybody. So this week we're going to go over how to create and use insert meshes as well as what we need for our midterm project. So I hope everyone's been working on their sci-fi helmets and they have been following along with the clipping and trimming and have been using the extraction method to create some really cool looking helmet pieces. Here we're going to go over how to use the insert mesh function. So if we have our any type of mesh and we come into our brush palette, you'll see if we hit the I on the keyboard, you'll see there's a lot of insert meshes. So a lot of these are really great, and I probably have a few that you might not have. But any insert mesh that you find in here you can certainly use on your helmet. But the basics of them are they are a bunch of basic meshes or even complex meshes that you can create that you can then turn into an insert mesh or an insert multi-mesh. Insert multi-mesh is what you see here. It says IMM. Steam gears. That means insert multi-mesh. And if I come over here and I drag out, I get an insert mesh. I get a very complex little piece of geometry that somebody has created for our ZBrush here. And it allows me to just kind of quickly add in some really high frequency details really fast. Now with an insert multi-mesh, if I hit M on the keyboard, it's going to bring up a menu. And this menu has a multiple variety of meshes, hence the name. So I can come in here and click something different, and then I can drag out and do the same thing. Now, the way that they go about creating these meshes is pretty straightforward. So if I have a mesh here and I turn it into a poly mesh, if I wanted to make something as simple as this, say I just wanted this cylinder as an insert mesh, I can come up here to my brush palette and I can come down here and I can click on Create Insert Mesh, and it will ask me, the current brush is an insert mesh brush. Would you like to append the active mesh to this brush or create a new one? We're going to create a new one because I don't want this cylinder to be a part of that insert multi-mesh gear brush that I have preset already. And now you'll see my brush turns from that gear insert mesh to this little cylinder. So now I can come over here and I can start to drag out a bunch of cylinders. So in essence, that's how we make an insert mesh. It's very easy. Just come up here, create insert mesh. Now if I wanted to maybe go back to the first assignment that we did where I had you guys creating basic 3D objects, we can create something just a little bit different. I'll come down here to the Initialize tab and I'll maybe change some of these values a little bit. Okay, I got a little rivet panel. Maybe I'll adjust the taper a little bit more. And I'll change my inner radius. Okay. Now my insert mesh is also bound by how I am viewing it. So whichever way I'm viewing my model is how it's going to draw out once I create it. So if I like it sitting like this, I'll keep it this way in my viewer. Then I'll come back up and I'll hit Create Insert Mesh. And I'm still going to hit New this time because I just want this to be a new brush. I'm going to hit New, and you'll see my insert mesh brush changes over here. First it's wanting me to make this into a poly mesh, my first primitive here. But I still have my regular insert mesh that I've created, and you see now it's going to draw out just the way I was looking at it. So we can keep that in mind while we're creating these. If you're creating a bolt and you want it to draw out with the bolt head coming out this way, we can do that. And we can orientate it this way before we hit the Create Insert Mesh brush. Now let's say if I go to my primitives again, and we'll pick let's see, nothing too wild. Maybe we'll just pick a sphere, and I'll come back down to my initialize palette here, and I'll maybe play with the coverage. And I'll make like a half dome, and I'll squish it in a little bit. Okay. Then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go back and say create insert mesh. And it's going to ask me that same question. Do I want to append to the active mesh? Because I have an insert mesh active. And this time I'm going to say yes. I'm going to append. And here it'll tell me pressing the M key while an insert multi-mesh brush is active will enable you to view and select any of the included shapes. So I'll say OK. So here I can make it a poly mesh again. So here I can drag out my little Pac-Man shape. And now I can hit M on the keyboard, and you'll see now I have access to that last insert mesh that I made. So now I can click on that, and I can start dragging that one out. So you can see we can kind of populate our scene really quickly with insert meshes. They're really a pretty powerful tool. And they can actually be a lot of fun. So some of you have done some work with some curve insert meshes that you've seen. These are a little bit different. We're not going to get heavy into using curves quite yet, but I will show you how to use them with in regards to the insert mesh. So if I click on this one, this is a really good one. If I hit M on the keyboard, you'll see it gives me a bunch of meshes. But when I view these, like this one here, it's made up of 3 parts. It's a bracelet, and it's got 1, 2, 3 pieces. Now when I go to draw this out, you're going to see it's going to start to draw this line. And then when I let go, it's going to actually draw out that insert mesh. But it's actually drawing out one piece, and then it's duplicating the middle piece over and over again, and then drawing out the other piece when I get to the end of my curve. So this is a really powerful tool. It allows me to create fun things like chain links and stuff like that. So if I come up to my tool here and I grab a ring, and then I duplicate that ring. Oops, gotta make it into a poly mesh first. So let's try that again. Duplicate that ring. I'm going to move it down and rotate it. I'm going to grab this ring again, duplicate this one down here like that. And we're a little off center, so we'll straighten her out. Oh. There we go. Okay. And then we will duplicate this one more time and move this down like that. Okay, so then we end up with this little chain link here. Then I want to come in and I want to combine all of these objects. So I'm going to merge down. And then I want to make polygroup selections. So I'm going to select just this model, and then I'm going to hit Control W to make that into a new polygroup. I'm going to hit Control Shift click to bring the other polygroups back. Then I'm going to hide that one. Control W again. And then I'm going to grab just these middle ones and hit Control W again. So this is what we need. We need a polygroup on our top link. We need a polygroup for our center links. And we need a polygroup for the bottom link. And now what we can do with that is then we can come in here and we can hit Create Insert Mesh again. And we'll say, no, we want that to be a new one. And then if we come back to just a random tool, and if we draw that out, you'll see it draws out just like any other insert mesh. But now if we come up here to our stroke palette and we go to curve, we turn on curve mode and we start to draw that out, you'll see it actually, I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it a little better, actually makes a chain. And it links them all together very nicely. So, it's the same as creating an insert mesh. We come down and hit Create Insert Mesh. The only difference is that when we create this, we have to make sure that we have 1, 2, 3 polygroups. And like we were looking at in this multi-mesh, you can see you can do this with a variety of different things. You just have to be creative. Here it's just 3 rectangles put together, and it repeats that middle one over and over again to make a nice strap. This one here, the 2 plugs on the end are 2 meshes, and the cord in the middle is the one that gets duplicated, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of really great things in here. And feel free to look at all of these and look at all your brushes and use these on your helmet. So if I come back to my helmet that I was working on a few days ago, let me get to the right one here. There it is. I can come in here and I can go back to my brush palette and I can search for one of my insert multi-meshes that I made. Then I'm going to hit M on the keyboard, and then I'm going to so you can see if I turn symmetry on, I can get it on both sides. So see, it's pretty cool. The way you saw me move it right there is I started to draw it out, and then I actually held down the space bar. You can kind of pan it around. Kind of helps you fine-tune getting it in place. And you know, then I can hit M on the keyboard and maybe try to use this other one. I'm not really sure if it'll be successful, but we'll give it a shot. Maybe not. Maybe we can muscle that into place. I might be trying a little too hard here. Yeah, it doesn't look great. It looks like crap. But you get the idea. So you can do some pretty neat stuff with insert meshes. Feel free to come in here and check out any of the insert meshes that you have set up. If I go back to, where is that, Steam Gear 1, there's a lot of really great stuff here that we can use. Well, we can start to populate our helmet with a few of these. And anytime that you draw out an insert mesh, they're going to be a separate polygroup, so I can come in and I can separate those out. I can mask them. I can drop them in the surface a little bit. I can go back to my multi-mesh tab. Maybe we'll go find another brush. Hit I on the keyboard to separate out the insert meshes. Come to these machine parts. We'll see if we can find something neat to use in here. You know, we got some cool bolts, some other pieces that we can use. Maybe this thing looks pretty neat. Maybe we can pop that inside. Maybe push it in a little bit, add some funky detail, or maybe we can use it as a neat little coupler piece in here, kind of really add to that ear area that I have going on. And what's great is when you draw out an insert mesh, it masks everything else. So then you can just manipulate that. So if I were to come in and just select out these pieces and I wanted to use them, as soon as I draw it out, you'll see it masks the whole helmet, and it sets up my transpose line right with it, so then I can manipulate these into place. And then when I'm done, I can clear my mask and see how they look. And I start to get some neat little detail. So those mixed with making all your paneling and trimming and sculpting and using your polish brushes and other things like that, you should be able to get a really nice finished product out of your helmet. And then what we're going to do is we are going to take this and do final render and composite for our midterm project. And what I want to see is I want you to do BPR renders of your model. And like we did last time, we set up our transparency. Let me make sure that's on. So we're going to hit transparent button. Okay. Just in case you decided, like me, to have a glass visor. And then what I want you to do is, my screen's kind of cramped because I'm running a screen recording program, but I'm going to try and do this way. You guys may want to just export out separate images of your model. But what I'm going to be looking for is a front, back, side, and a 3/4 view of your helmet. So I have a 3/4 view here. This is a side view.